I just feel a difference, but I'm not 1000% on the research. I've just read a study that was it was based on judo and how their performance was increased and they performed better. I'm not really sure how they did it, but I just saw that study and I was like, okay, I'm going to try beta alanine, but I hadn't really done any more research than that.
Yeah, I think, well, what you're feeling is kind of right. Even if you think it works and it's a placebo, that's where a lot of these, marketing companies get away. If you market it well enough and someone thinks it, because your mind's a powerful thing. If you've trained for a while, you'll realize it, especially in like jujitsu or judo, like your mind's a powerful thing. But at the end of the day, your supplements are the sprinkles on top of the cake. Like if you're eating a good diet, you're training hard, they're going to get you 98% of the way there. All these supplements
Yeah.
just add a couple sprinkles, but some supplements add more sprinkles than other. And beta
Mm.
alanine is a very interesting one because it helps buffer our endurance. And what I mean by that is that when we get fatigued, what happens? And everyone will say, "Oh, we build up lactic acid," and it's the lactic acid that makes our body feel fatigued and makes our muscles burn. We all know that horrible feeling of having lactic acid. It's actually not the lactic acid itself. There's a little hydrogen, which is a little molecule that's attached, a little atom that's attached to it. And hydrogen is very acidic by nature. And what happens when our body exercises and builds up lactic acid actually has one of these acidic hydrogens attached to it and they break apart. So although lactic acid is partly to blame because it's carrying this hydrogen into the muscle, it's the actual hydrogen attached to the muscle that makes it breaking off to the lactic acid that makes the muscle feel really acidic and gross and sore and everything. Beta alanine is cool because it breaks down into this thing called carnosine. And what carnosine does in the body is it sweeps up and collects those little acidic hydrogens. So if you can take more beta alanine and you can have more in your muscle when you're creating these little hydrogens, you can clean more up and have a less acidic muscle, which means you have that less burning feel when you're doing that type of activity. With all these supplements, the thing to note about it is one, you need to assess maybe you're getting it naturally in your diet and you probably don't need it. And super physiological doses, which means more than what the body would naturally get in food, might not make a difference. Sometimes they do, sometimes it doesn't. Things like creatine and beta alanine seems to be the case if you're a bit deficient in your body, like say a vegetarian or vegan or plant-based athlete would be. If you put these things back up to physiological dose, there seems to be a positive benefit for it. It's more so the fact when we do super physiological dosing, do you get an even bigger benefit? And that's where it gets a bit murky. But if you're one of these people that say, hey, you know what, I'm pretty good with my diet, but I'm nowhere near 110%. But you know what, maybe something like this could just tip you over to the upper limits of what you need, and you'll get a performance benefit from it. If you're all over it, then you probably don't need it. And that's why we call it to supplement a diet, right?
Mm.
So beta alanine is a good one. We recommend it because other than it making you get tingly and feeling like you got ants running over your face and whatever, other than that, there's not a lot of negative side effects. So even if you're good and we're not quite sure if you have enough in your body, even if we overdo it a bit, there's no real negatives. So I think, okay, well, if you might get a positive out of it, let's go for it because all you're going to do is really have to deal with ants in your pants and you can get over that and just train.
Yeah, I overcame that. I don't get it anymore. I'm unsure if you build tolerance, but I did split it into two doses, which is
Yeah.
what I learned. So two doses of 3 grams. It was just a bit annoying to remember, but once I kind of got used to it, and then I just had a bigger dose, I kind of have a tolerance to it. So I'm not sure if that works like that, and maybe you do know, but I feel better now just taking that one hit. Do you get tolerance, or is that just a personal thing that I've experienced?
Yeah. You definitely get tolerance. You think of like the mechanism of what makes we call it paresthesia is the beta alanine breaking down into the carnosine going into the blood. So as long as you're going to be putting that in there, that's going to be happening. You're going to get that effect. So by splitting that, you're going to get half of the effect, I guess, than what you
Mm.
would if you had the full dose. Do you get a tolerance to it? It's always going to happen. Do you get better at handling that? The same way as when you got armbarred the first time, it really hurt. But then mentally, once you figured out like what that feels like, you probably had a better pain threshold tolerance for getting armbarred, even though we get armbarred all the time. So
Yeah.
it's similar to that in that you probably get more accustomed and used to the feeling of it.
Yeah, okay. I have one last question, and then I'll let you go. it's another question that I found on your Instagram, and this is something that I've dealt with clients personally, but it's always nice to hear someone else's opinion and how they approach it with early morning eating before training. So I'm not a huge fan of my clients training fasted. It does obviously depend on the person, but I believe that the research is kind of like you may be able to build the same amounts of muscle, but in terms of strength performance, you're just not going to be there. Um, and you had some recommendations on your Instagram page around timing, starting an hour before, and then you can kind of work up to eating a little bit closer to training and a little bit more. Um, yeah, can you just shed some light on, well, firstly, if you believe that it is important, and if not, that's cool. Um, and if so, what some steps that people can take because some people just struggle to eat. They're like, look, I'm just not hungry, or I can't get up. I need to train at 5 a.m. I'm not getting up at 3:30 or 4 just to eat. So, what advice do you have for people like that?
Yeah, I'll break it up into a few ways. I won't answer it in the order you said, but the easiest way to answer this is
Yeah.
firstly, your stomach is like a muscle, and there's this concept of called training your gut, and it's absolutely a thing. We do this with endurance athletes that have to exercise for 5, 6, 7, 30, 45 hours straight, where you have to be taking on fuel, and it's called training your gut. And everyone can train their gut. The thing is that if you're going to the gym for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, there's probably not a lot of need for you to do it, so you just don't practice it. So the fact that people wake up and say, "Hey, I just can't eat beforehand," it's to me, I go, "Yeah, but when you were a white belt in the gym, you didn't know how to hip escape, you didn't know how to shrimp. When you first went into a weights room, you didn't know how to do a bench press. When you first, went on a football field, you didn't know how to kick a football. These are things that you just learn to do over time, and training your gut is exactly the same. Your stomach is a muscle that you can train. So if you say to me, I can't eat in the morning, I usually say it's because you've put no effort into doing it. Everyone can do it. Now, to be able to do it, I guess if people are listening to this and going, okay, well, what do I eat? You want to make the process as easy as possible. For most people, what's going to be beneficial for your activity, if it's a little bit higher intensity or if you're trying to build muscle, getting in carbohydrates, because those carbohydrates are likely going to be the predominant fuel source, or whatever activity you're doing will probably benefit by sparing using the stored carbohydrates that you have. So putting in carbohydrates is usually a good idea. And people go, okay, well, what types? You want to get types that are very easily digestible. So simple carbohydrates, or if you grew up at the same time I did, high GI, low GI were really big, and they were all on the cereal boxes and everything else. So high GI foods, which mean they break down really fast and they get into our bloodstream really quick. So these are things like cereals, white breads, things that lack fiber, lack other things that are going to slow down the breakdown of that. A really ripe banana, some dried fruit, and a cup of orange juice, things like that that are going to, one, break down really fast. And then the second thing you need to consider is the volume of it. So you don't want to be smashing like a Subway footlong right before you go, because it's going to, one, take a long time to break down, but just a lot of volume of food. But you can very easily have a Gatorade and a chopped chip muffin that'll break down really fast, and it's not that much volume going in your gut, and it gives you all those good carbohydrates. The very last thing I say to people is, do you need to do it? And that's a question of what your goals are. So if your goal is to not be a serious athlete and you don't really care about your performance, then by all means go faster. I don't really care. Like if you're just going there, maybe it's good for your mental health and you just
Check
want
the
to move
box.
around, yeah, and you want to chat or whatever, or you don't have body composition goals, you don't have performance based goals, then whatever. Like you don't really need to take it that serious. Just go to the gym and train and have fun and drink your black coffee. However, if you're like most people who train and most people we probably deal with, like if you're serious about what you're doing, you need to eat. And it's not necessarily for the training session, although there is benefit to eating for the training session. One, because you'll have immediate energy to do the training session, but two, you're training to get a certain adaptation. You go and do a specific weight session or a specific cardio session or a specific conditioning session to get some response out of your body to either make you fitter, faster, or stronger. by having certain foods and having those carbohydrates on beforehand, you help that process afterwards. You help the process afterwards because you break down those nutrients, physically build the systems that make you fitter, faster, and stronger. The other thing, which I believe is the most important one, which applies to you if you're either a serious athlete or you're very performance focused, is that it helps your recovery. And if anyone's ever been in a serious training block where you're training 2 to 3 times a day, most days of the week with a rest day in between at the end of a brutal training block, you realize that this is a game of, can I rock up to this session in the best shape possible to do the workload, to do the work rate required to get whatever it is I need to get out of the session, whether it's a speed session, whether it's a strength session, whether it's a conditioning session, whatever. And one of the easiest ways to put yourself in the best position to do that is to eat properly around training, before, during, and after. So that's the process that I go through with people. I go, hey, if you just don't care, if this isn't important to you, have a black coffee. I don't give, it doesn't affect me. Just go do it. Hey, but if you're coming on my roster as an athlete and you've got my name attached to it, I don't like losing. I don't like losing. I don't want you to lose. I want you to be good. You're eating. And if you say to me, oh, I can't really get it, it's like, okay, we need to work on that there, because it's not an option. Like, this is not an option. We just need to work. The same as when your coach says, give me 20 burpees or 50 burpees, and you go, I can't do it. Your coach will say, shut the F up and do the burpees. You'll get better at it. I will tell you, shut the F up and eat the food. You will get better at it. And it's just really a question. Are you that serious about it, or are you not? And most people, if you're serious about it, you should be eating before you train.
When I first thought of doing a podcast in 2019, I wrote down everything that I wanted to achieve with the show. And one thing I never wrote down was to spam you with ads of products that I never really used myself. However, I did write down that I wanted to grow it as big as possible and have as many interesting people on the show as I could. To help make that happen, all I ask is that you leave a review on the podcast platform that you're listening to this episode on and share it with someone that you know it will benefit. If you want to support myself even further, and more importantly, your body transformation, and are interested in having me as your coach to help you achieve the results that you just can't seem to achieve on your own, you can visit teamrockashby.com to see what program fits you best.